All right. Good morning. We are going to have a quick review of the new RPA and about 15, 16 other forms that have been modified or updated. I'm Rick Borgnotti. I am a certified trainer with California Association of Realtors. However, this is not a CAR training. If you want to take the training with California Association of Realtors, with an attorney at California Association of Realtors, then you really need to attend one of the trainings with California Association of Realtors, which is going to take about 4 hours. We are going to try to do this review in about hour and a half. So we'll leave some time for you guys to ask any questions that you may have. All right. So if everybody would mute themselves, I would really appreciate it, because there is a background noise right now. Maybe I can.
It's been resolved. Everybody's muted.
It's been resolved. Okay, beautiful. Okay. The assessor parcel number is a bigger space because you can put more APN numbers in there in case you're selling a piece of property that has got more than one APN number. Item C, more than one brokerage representing the seller, the buyer. It is becoming more and more popular now that two brokerages are working with one buyer or two brokerages are working with a seller. So you just mark that and use the ABA form. Okay. Purchase price. You put the purchase price over here. If it's an all cash deal, just mark all cash, and the rest of the financial part of it is gonna be locked, and you're not gonna be able to put anything in there, just like our current RPA. So you put the purchase price in there. Close of escrow, just like what we have right now. How many days to close escrow, or if you have a specific date, you want to put it over there. Expiration of the offer, you really don't have to fill anything out if you're going to leave the expiration to 3 calendar days. Initial deposit amount, just like what we have right now, you can put the dollar amount here, or you have an option of putting percentage. If you put a percentage, it would give you that percent, based on your sales, your offer price over here. But if you don't want to do that, just put the your initial deposit, the 3%, whatever that you're going to put down as initial deposit, goes over here. Loan amount, it goes over here, and it is going to be a conventional loan unless you mark one of these boxes. Okay, otherwise it's going to be conventional loan. So, and then your initial deposit has to be there within 3 business days after the acceptance by wire. Okay, so the options of, personal check, cashier check, all of that has been taken out. Also, you need to know that if you put in there, let's say within 3 business days by personal check, the escrow company has the right to say, I don't have a personal check and you need to wire. So leave it alone. 3 business days by wire. That's practice these days. Okay. Occupancy, so loan amount goes here. We don't about it. Occupancy type, it's automatically primary unless you mark secondary or investment. The balance of the down payment will be calculated and the purchase price will be here. Okay. Any questions so far on this? All right. You need to raise your hand or mute yourself. All right. The next page. Okay. We're going to be talking about seller credit. I mean, in today's market, at the start of the offer, we're not asking for the sellers to pay towards buyer's closing costs, but we know in buyer's market we do. So if you're asking for buyer to pay, for the seller to pay towards buyer's closing costs, you can put the dollar amount over here. You don't have to write that $5,000 or $10,000 is going to go towards buyer's closing cost, recurring and non-recurring cost anymore. Don't have to do that. It's already written over here. seller credit to be applied to the closing cost, or anything else that you want to do, repairs or whatever that you want to do. That's if you're doing it upfront, okay? Additional financing terms, if you have any other additional financing term, you can put them over here. Verification of all cash, it already says it's automatically attached. You don't have to check any box, or you're going to provide it within the 3 business days, or 3 days, I'm sorry, 3 days. Nobody's going to wait for you to provide those verifications within 3 days. So it's all of them are attached. Verification of down payment is attached. Verification of loan application is attached. The current one, we have to check a box saying that it's going to be attached. Now, I want you to pay attention to this. Your loan application, your pre-qualification, is it a pre-qualification? Is it a pre-approval? Or is it fully underwritten pre-approval? So know the lender that you're working with and get the DU before you guys submit the loan. Because if you're submitting a loan just based on a pre-qualification that, you know, maybe the lender hasn't seen anything and is just giving you a letter and you're marking this, the chances of your offer going through is less. You make your offer stronger by having the DU, okay? Fully underwritten pre-approval. Final verification of condition, just like what we have right now, 5 days. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to check anything. Assignment, okay? You don't have to write, you're writing an offer for, you know, Rick Boniati and or assignee anymore, okay? Assignment request, within 17 days, the buyer can ask the seller and for assigning the property to either, you know, to someone else, to an assignee. And we're going to go over that a little bit later on when we go over assignment of agreement, okay? And how it is done. Loans, 17 days contingency, unless you want to change it. If there is no loan contingency, just check this box, okay? Appraisal contingency, 17 days, or if you want to change it to whatever that you want. Or
you're changing the forms, Arlene. Sadban. Yeah.
Would you please mute yourself? Hi.
No, I'm not.
Will you please mute yourself? Thank you. Okay. Appraisal contingency. If you have no appraisal contingency, you will just mark this. Okay. Now there's an interesting line here. You're making an offer of $1 million, but you're saying, look, my buyer will purchase the property if it appraises at least for $900,000. So you still have an appraisal contingency. So if you're writing $900,000 over here, you don't need to check this box. You're saying, I'm paying you $1 million for your property, but if it appraises at $900,000, we're still buying. Okay, obviously the buyer needs to come up with the difference. All right. The next are contingencies that we currently have. Investigation of the property, 17 days. Look at this paragraph. We have it in our current RPA, but a lot of people have overlooked it or they don't know where it is. Informational access to the property, 17 days. Buyer's right to access the property for informational purposes only. Okay, so the buyer has 17 days to access the property for informational purposes. It is not a contingency and does not relate any additional cancellation right to the buyer. Okay, so informational, so remember that. Okay, if you want to reduce it, reduce them 17 days or whatever that you want. Or if you want to increase it, you can increase it if you have a long-term escrow. This is done just to accommodate a buyer that is purchasing a property and they want to come back later on and say, look, I want to access because I want my interior designer to come in and take a look at it, or I want to buy furniture. I want to know what kind of furniture I want to buy. I want to measure the room, whatever. But they cannot go in there and cancel the escrow because of the informational access. Okay. Review of seller documents. We're talking about the CC&Rs, 9As, and all that. Preliminary title report, common interest disclosures, review of leased or liened items such as solar panels and all that. Everything is 17 days. Okay. And for this part, you can remove the removal or waiver of the contingency. Okay. For these two, just checking this box is good enough. But for these other ones, you can attach the CR, okay, and remove those contingencies if you do not want to have those contingencies. Removal or waiver at the time of offer is against the agent advice. See paragraph 8H. In paragraph 8H, it goes into further detail why it is against the agent or the broker's advice. Okay. If it is contingent on the sale of buyer's property, you're gonna check this, and COP will be automatically attached. Okay. Any questions on this part of the grid that I just went over? All right. Carmen?
Yeah.
Carmen, yes.
Rick, I have a question regarding L3 through L7. If we have different time frames there, can we have different time frames for each of those items?
Yes.
Yet L3 says investigation of property, which is the inspection, I believe. What if inspection is 10 days, but either one of these items has a longer date? How does that play into removal of contingency?
Okay, your inspection contingency is different. Review of seller documents, if the seller has any documents, review, that is different. Preliminary title report sometimes doesn't come in for, it depends on the escrow. It depends on the title company. With our affiliates, the ones that we work with right now, you call them today and you want the prelim and you're in a rush, they'll have it for you tomorrow or the next day. But then you're working with somebody out of town or somebody that, another title company that it takes 10 days for them to provide the preliminary title report. So you want to make sure that you have ample time to review the preliminary title report. The investigation of property, it's not just the physical inspection. We're going to go over that a little bit later as well, okay? But you want to give yourself enough opportunity to do those investigations. And we currently do 7 days, 10 days. We call the inspection companies that we know, and they come out there and they take a look at it. We tell the buyer to go out there to the city and pull the permits and do any investigation and inspection that they have within the first 17 days. That's the part that the buyer does all the investigation, including termite, okay, and all that. But these are usually separate contingencies that we want to make sure that if the listing or if the buyer's agent requires longer days or shorter days, then they can input it here. 17 is just an arbitrary number that the standard form advisory committee thought that it would be a good thing to put everything 17 days, okay? It stands out, maybe it brings to the agent's attention as well, but you can modify, you can change any one of them that you want. Or you can even remove them.
Rick?
Yes.
Rick, it's Margie. So
yes.
in our previous RPA, wasn't the review of seller documents, it was the same thing. It was right under, like seller gives all the document, gives everything. You'd say 17 days, but I would always say like 5 days. And then it would drop down to buyer's investigation of property. Correct?
That's right.
It's basically this, I don't know. I just, you're a buyer writing an RPA, I wouldn't be giving the seller 17 days to lollygag, just.
Right. You're right. Okay. And we're going to get a little bit later into the time frame that the seller has to provide you all those documents. This is the time frame that the buyer has to approve it. Okay, but you know, once you use it once, you're going to see this is a lot easier and a lot better to use. And everybody that has used it yesterday, I reviewed like 10, 12 of them in our office, and everybody is getting it. Everybody is getting it. So
Rick, my point is that until all of these items are fulfilled within the time frame that they agree upon, they cannot remove the contingency, which would be the inspection contingency in this case, right?
No, the inspection contingency is under the investigation of property.
Right.
Okay, but review of seller documents is, you know, it's not the inspection. It's documents that the seller has to provide.
I understand. Okay, currently we have under contingency removal, we have, you have check boxes there for CCNRs, review of that, or prelim and things of that sort. But don't they all have to be done before you just remove that contingency? Because
well,
otherwise we're going to have different contingencies for different items to be removed, right?
Yeah, well, that is part of the problem, because once you're removing, you know, some people thought that removing the contingencies and removing the investigation contingencies, you're removing everything. Okay, you shouldn't remove it, because there are different reports, and you should remove only the reports that you want to have that investigation or inspection removed. So that's why there are different time frames for all of this. I think it's going to take a little bit of a time for all of us to just get used to it. But let's say you put everything 5 days, 5 days, 5 days, 5 days, okay? And 5 days comes up, the seller hasn't provided you any documents. And the seller provides you the documents on the 4th day or on the 6th day. Now, from that day, you have 5 days after receipt to remove that contingency. So we have the same paragraph in current RPA, the 5-day extension. We have it in the current RPA, but it is embedded in paragraph, I think, the 13B2 or 13B3. So it's in there somewhere. But now it is clear.
Thank you.
But I get your point as well. But, you know, make notes, because come January, I'm going to go back to CAR. We're going to go to CAR, and I will be taking all the notes and all the recommendations to the Standard Form Advisory Committee so they can review it again. This form will be updated for sure. Okay? All right. Vivian, you have a question?
Yes, I'm a little confused on the appraisal contingency part here. Okay, the no appraisal contingency, of course, we understand. That's simple. But the appraisal contingency based on the value, a minimum value, you said if we put in a minimum of like 900 and it goes to, and the property is $1 million and it only comes in at 900, then they have to come in with that extra 100,000, right? Or yeah, 900, that extra 100,000. Is that what this is saying?
Well, here's what it is. Okay, let me explain. Okay, you're buying the property for $1 million.
Correct.
And you write in here, we are going to purchase the property if it appraises minimum of 900,000. So that means Correct. If the property appraises at 900, you're still buying the property at $1 million.
Oh.
Okay.
I don't think that's clear in that paragraph at all.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, to me, it's not.
Drop me a note, and I'll take it to the committee. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
And Rick, are you looking at the text questions too, or do you want somebody to monitor that?
Monitor that, and then let me move through this. Okay. Can you read that for me, please? The text.
Oh,
question.
sure. It's from Susan.
I'd rather no text. Just raise your hand so everybody will hear your question, and we can record it as well. Go ahead.
This is from Susan Brosialian. Sorry if I butchered your name. Scenario: can the investigation of a property be 7 days and informational access to the property be left at 17 days after the CR is released for investigation of property by the 7 days?
Yes. And it is in the current purchase agreement as well. You can remove all the contingencies, but you still have informational access, even in current RPA, that you can go in there and take a look at the property for your informational purposes only. So you can leave your informational access 17 days, not a problem.
And then the follow-up to that was HOA docs package will be under a different contingency, the common interest disclosures, correct?
Yes, the common interest disclosures are here.
Okay, and then Raul has a question and I'll let him ask it since he, oh, no, it wasn't a question. Okay, we're caught up.
Okay, so the common interest disclosures, sometimes we know that homeowner association paperwork that do not get to us within 17 days, do not get to us within 15 days, okay? But let's say we left it at 17 days and they got to us on day 15. You have 5 days for you to review and approve. So you get a listing, get everything ready. Okay, because it doesn't matter on the common interest disclosure, you force the buyer and say, you have to remove everything in 5 days. Cool, I remove everything in 5 days, but do you have it? If you don't have your homeowner association documents, then the buyer doesn't have to remove the contingencies. They still have 5 days after receiving. Okay, let's move on to the next portion, okay? Time and possession. Upon notice, the time of possession is upon notice of recordation or at 6 p.m. So escrow company calls you at 11 o'clock and says, congratulations, it's recorded. Okay, at 11 o'clock, that's the time of possession. Okay, or it's at 6 p.m. or any other time that you want to put in there. Okay. The seller occupied or vacant units. Okay, so if it is at 6 p.m., it will be on close of escrow date at 6 p.m. So if you're writing an offer, my suggestion would be time of possession, 6 p.m., and seller occupied or vacant units, close of escrow. So at close of, just like currently what we have, at close of escrow, 6 p.m. Okay, except this has been taken into 2 parts. Okay. Then comes if the occupancy is going to be provided within the 29 days. If the seller is going to occupy the property up to 29 days, or if the seller is going to provide occupancy, or if the seller is going to provide possession and occupancy 30 days or long, or 30 days or later, So, and it goes over here for up to 29 days, use the form SIP, 30 days or longer, use the form RLAS, okay? And we'll go over this a little bit later on as well. Tenant occupied units, the current form to attach its TIP, the name has changed and it is going to be TOPA, Tenant Occupied Property Addendum. Current form is TIP, Tenant in Possession Addendum. So that form has changed. And when do you use that form? When you're selling a unit, when you're selling a property that the tenant is going to remain in there after close of escrow. Seller delivery of documents. So now seller has to, within 7 days, seller has to deliver the documents. Yes, great.
Rick, TOPA, TOPA, also can refer to Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. That is a big deal. So I am wondering if that could be clarified by CAR so these two do not, cancel each other out, at least not on the contract. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing to my attention. I will bring it, I have noticed that I am going to bring it to CAR's attention and make sure this says CAR form TOPA, but I just want to make sure that people don't confuse it. Okay, so the name might change again. But thank you for bringing it to my attention. All right, seller delivery of documents. So seller has 7 days to deliver, after acceptance, to deliver documents. Seller also, seller sign and return escrow documents within 5 days. Everybody's got to sign and return escrow instructions to the escrow company. Time to pay fees for ordering homeowner documents is 3 days, and later on we're going to see who is paying for it. Whoever that is paying for it has got 3 days to pay for ordering homeowner association documents. Install smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, and water heater bracing. Whoever that is going to do it has got 7 days to do it. And later on, when we go into the other grid and it says the seller that has to do it, then everything will fall in place. Okay? Any questions? All right. The next part are items included. All right? Just what we have, except the items have expanded because we're talking about wine refrigerator, and more importantly, that nowadays is more common: video doorbell, security camera system, smart homes, wall-mounted brackets, above ground pools, spas, electric car chargers. Okay, now that California cannot sell gas-powered vehicles, electric cars are going to be more common, and homes are going to have car charging stations or car charging devices or car charging plugs. And I want to make sure that those systems are staying with the property. Potted trees and shrubs. Okay, those big pots that you see in the backyard of some of homes. So whatever that you see that you think it should be included, mark it. If there's something that is not here, just check one of these boxes and put it right next to it. Items excluded, just like our current form that we have. Natural hazard disclosures. Who pays for it? You know, in our current contract, we are asking the sellers to pay for it. Here we go. You have a choice of buyer, seller, both. You can put we can check box seller. If you want to mark environmental, make sure you mark environmental as well, provided by. There will be a drop down and you can choose a whole bunch of providers, or you can write your favorite NHD company here, or you can write seller's choice, whatever that you choose, not a problem at all. Smoke alarm, carbon monoxide detectors, water heater bracing. You remember we said that it has to be done within 7 days. Okay. Now, who's going to be who's going to be paying for it? Seller is going to be paying for it, right? So, government required point of sale inspection reports done by the seller. Government required point of sale corrective remedial action, again by seller. So 9A falls within these two. Water conservation retrofit falls within these two. So with the new RPA, okay, so we're going to be marking the CO if you want the seller to pay. For the seller to pay for Q4, seller to pay for Q5, seller to pay for Q6, okay? Escrow fees, you either mark, I don't know what your preference is. If you want to mark this one here, each to pay their own fees, it is the right way to do it. I would mark each to pay their own fees. The reason for that is sometimes you go into escrow and you get a discount. And if you write both and write 50% each, if the escrow company gives a discount to one party, they have to give the same discount to the other party. Otherwise, the discount that they give, it's going to be split up between buyer and seller. So best thing to do, or you have an investor that the escrow company is giving them a better price, okay? So just write each to pay their own fees. Escrow holder, you can write your own escrow company or seller's choice, or you can write your escrow company and or seller's choice, whichever one that you want. Okay. Owner's title insurance. Who pays for the owner's title insurance?
Can I ask a question? Can I ask?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, please, Margaret.
Regarding the escrow thing, yesterday I was trying to write a contract. It wouldn't let me check buyer and seller. And then when I checked both, then it would uncheck each pay their own. So I wound up just doing each pay their own. Is that the correct one where you never mention buyer or seller?
That's right. You don't need to mention buyer and seller anymore.
So, but it wouldn't let me check the word both. All I could check was each pay their own.
Yeah, just check each their own, and that's it. You're done.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Some of the verbiage that we were using in the past, like 50% buyer, 50% seller, look, that is gone because we know who are in this contract. Buyers and sellers. And who's paying for the escrow escrow fees? Buyers and sellers. So unless a third party is paying for the escrow fees, then we're going to put it in additional terms. But right now, our 99.9%, 99%, or almost all of our contracts are going to be paid by buyer, seller, or one party is going to pay for all of it. If the buyer is paying for the entire escrow fees, then you mark buyer. Buyer is paying seller fees, buyer is paying buyer fees, buyer paying everybody's escrow fees. Okay? So, all right. Title insurance, just like what we have right now, it's paid by the seller. We have the lender's title insurance. It's always paid by buyer. And so there is no check mark. County transfer tax, paid by seller. City transfer tax, just like our current contract. If you mark them all seller, then it's already here. It's done by the seller. Who pays for homeowner association fee preparing disclosures? There's a civil code that requires the seller to pay for it. So it's already marked here seller. There is no other choice. Okay. Homeowner association certification fee. It is always paid by the buyer. So the only choice is buyer, and it's here. Homeowner association transfer fee. Okay. It could be paid by both, 50-50. It could be paid by buyer, but we are currently asking, I highlighted this because that's what we do right now. That's what customary in our area. So seller is paying for the homeowner association transfer fee. Private transfer fee. In our current contract, it says private transfer. If a private transfer fee, then it gives choices or who's going to be paying for it. Okay. Private transfer fees are paid by the seller. Okay. Unless it's checked any of these two boxes. Home warranty plan. Who will be paying for it? Or if the buyer is going to waive the home warranty plan. If the seller is going to be paying for the home warranty plan, mark over here, dollar amount goes over here, and who is going to issue the home warranty. If you want to add pool, spa, roof, air conditioning, you can put it here, home warranty plan, premium plan, covering roof, whatever that you want, you can add it here. The best is for you to get a pamphlet from your favorite home warranty and understand what they cover and what they don't cover. And whatever that you want, you can put it here, okay? If their premium coverage covers a whole bunch of it, then you don't have to put it here anymore, okay? So the home warranty plan goes over here, cost goes over here, issued by, there will be a drop-down menu, and there will be a whole bunch of home warranty companies that are going to be here, or you can just write seller's choice, no question asked, okay? Any questions so far?
Rick, I have one.
Yes, sir.
So when you get the drop-down menu, typically when you're filling in things in like warranty companies and escrow, you typically like to and even for title, you'd like to specify the rep's name or the escrow officer's name. If you choose to drop down, you won't be able to do that. And I guess if you write it in, will these fields compress enough so you can still put them in, or are they just fixed length and that's it?
No, if you write it in, and if it's long, and it will go to text overflow.
Okay.
Any of these fields that you write something in and it's too long, it's going to go to text overflow.
Okay, thank you.
All right, my pleasure. All right, so other terms is just the same as what we have right now. All the addendas that we should add or we currently use are all mentioned over here. Now, we don't have a probate purchase agreement anymore. That's gone. We don't have a manufactured home purchase agreement anymore, okay? And in the past, we had a probate addendum, and it was called PAPA, P-A-P-A. The current probate agreement purchase addendum, it is PA-PA, okay? So you're using the same form, except you're going to attach PA-PA. If you're selling a manufactured home, we used to have a manufactured home purchase agreement. Now you're going to have the just current purchase agreement, and you can attach MH-PA. In the past, the form was called MHPA. Now it is MH-PA. All right. And nowadays, people are buying like a home in Big Bear. 5-6 families are buying home in Big Bear, and they're buying it as a tenant in common, and you can mark this one, that you're buying only a percentage of it, or you're buying a stock, a cooperative part of it, okay? Don't go out there writing a contract between 5 people. You're not attorneys, okay? But if you're buying only a certain portion of that property, then you can use this TIC-PA, okay? That you need to talk to your broker and see how your broker feels about it and what your broker is going to advise on. Other addendas, buyer intent to exchange is called BES. Now it is BXA. It's the same form, just a different name, okay? Seller intent to exchange, it was SES. Now it is SXA, okay? So it is just same form, just a different number, a different name for it, okay? Probate advisory, you have it here. Trust advisory, these are what we use. So over here, talks about the initial deposit, that it has to be, if method other than wire transfer is specified in the paragraph, and such method is unacceptable to the escrow holder, then upon notice from the escrow holder, delivery shall be by wire transfer. Remember at the very beginning, I said that escrow holder can refuse and say, I don't want personal check. I don't want a cashier check. They can, okay? You cannot change the escrow company without getting the other party's approval. Okay, FHA, VA. If FHA, VA is checked, the seller has no obligation to pay or satisfy any or all of the lender requirements unless agreed in writing. But the seller has to be, the seller has to know that if they don't agree to those repairs, the FHA or VA may not give the buyer the loan. Limits on credits, if you're asking $5,000 credit towards buyer's closing cost, $20,000 credit towards buyer's closing cost, it explains it a little bit. What's a contractual credit? What's a lender allowable credit? And that if your lender allowable credit is less than your contractual credit, that automatically doesn't reduce the price. Your buyer loses it, okay? So make sure that if you're asking $20,000 credit towards buyer's closing cost and your lender allows 12, ask for an $8,000, talk to your mortgage broker, ask for $8,000 price reduction and a $12,000 credit towards closing costs, okay? So that will not be any problem.
Rick, before you leave that page, can I ask you a question?
Sure, of course.
So I seem to recall, and I know there's a short sale addendum that you had, there's a box you can check off, but I seem to recall there was something in the law that said if it's a short sale and it's and the seller is owner occupying and the buyer is an investor, you had to use different forms.
NODPA.
I don't know where that is.
NODPA is a separate form on its own. Okay, that form also is being modified because that form has got all kinds of provisions in there, and the seller can cancel all the way to the last minute.
Right. So you would specify that particular form instead of in the addenda or something like that? Is that
you would use that form?
Use that form instead of what? Or in
RPA.
Instead of the, okay, so if you have that situation, use that form, not the RPA.
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to get that clear. Thank you.
All right. Great question. Thank you. All right. Buyer stated financing. Seller is relying on buyer representing of the type of financing specified, but not include and not limited to all cash, okay, amount of down payment, or contingent or non-contingent loan. So if you are submitting an offer and you're writing all cash, it just says like, look, hey, the seller is relying on that information. Okay. Seller has agreed. I'm going to just read this because it's a lot easier. Seller has agreed to a specific closing date, purchase price, and to sell to the buyer in reliance on buyer's specified financing. Okay. Buyer shall pursue the financing specified in this agreement, even if buyer also elects to pursue an alternative for our financing. So it doesn't say that the buyer does not have the right to go and pursue alternative financing. If it's if it's all cash, buyer goes out there. Buyer has the right to go out there and pursue an 80-20 loan. Okay. So if buyer goes out there to get an 80-20 loan, okay, seller has no obligation to cooperate with buyer's efforts to obtain any financing other than specified in this agreement, but shall not interfere with closing at the purchase price on the close of escrow. So you have somebody coming in saying all cash, I'll close in 30 days, but they come up with a loan, 80-20, and they can close on time, okay? And they're closing at that price. Seller cannot refuse them, okay? Carmen.
Rick, oftentimes sellers are enticed by an all-cash loan, and they prefer to take that over a finance loan. So that pushes out all the other competition who are bidding on a certain property. So when this happens in the middle of the transaction, the buyers change their course and go for financing. Shouldn't there be a recourse for them?
Well, as long as the buyer can close at the price on close of escrow, there is none. No. Because
it just allows people to use a tactic to push out other competitors out of the whole deal.
But here's what happens, Carmen. If let's say if I write an offer on one of your listings, an all cash offer, $1,200,000, and you go, okay, we're going to sell it to you, $1,200,000. And what's the difference between me closing at $1,200,000 today, or as soon as we close escrow, the next day I refi? Okay. Now, the guarantee that your seller has is if I cannot get that loan, I'm committed to that $1,200,000 all cash.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Eddie Minacio.
Good morning. One thing on these cash offers, the seller, especially if you're going to do hard money loan or any kind of financing, if you write the offer as all cash, it makes a change on the title fees. If you're saying the seller to pay for title, then the seller has to pay for buyer's lender title. So the cost goes up. What do we do with them?
No, let me go back. Great point. Let me go back. Because the buyer title fee, it is paid by the buyer. Now, because that may be one of the problems of the previous purchase agreement. But here's, let me see, okay, preliminary title report, 17 days. Let me get to that, okay. Buyer's lender title insurance, paid by buyer. So if the buyer decides to go and get a loan, buyer has to pay that title insurance. And there is no choice. And it is in the current purchase agreement too, but a lot of people are mistaking it, but now it is clean. It is in this. So there's not going to be any issues.
Sounds good. Perfect.
Okay, let's go to...
Well, Susan Brosalian had another question. Her mic is out, which is why she can't ask the question. Okay. So her question is, going back to Ira's, what Ira's discussing, the answer to the question Ira asked regarding the different types of buyers, I believe his scenario was an owner-occupant offering with the seller being an investor, NODPA form attached. Question mark, is the NODPA form attached? Question mark.
No, we talked about the NODPA is a completely different form.
Okay.
You know, there were even before the forms changed, you had an RPA and then you had the NODPA, and you used the NODPA. Because NODPA has got different provisions in there. I go to Vivian, then Raz.
Rick, going back to the person who writes it's all cash and then gets a loan, if he gets a loan, he's going to have an appraisal. What if the seller says, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to open my door to an appraisal. You're not going to do it. You said all cash.
Well, if the appraisal is part of buyer's investigation and the buyer's right, okay, and the seller cannot refuse.
Okay, so it has to be done in the investigation period. So it's got to be done almost right away.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, Raz.
Thank you.
Rick, it's Margie.
Hi, Margie.
An appraisal could also be done within that period of time, access to property. I mean, if it's not a contingency, it can also be done there. I mean, I just did that.
Yeah.
You know, I gave them.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's just, again, it's not access to property. If the appraisal if the contract isn't contingent, on appraisal, yes, you could do it during the inspection period, but you could also do it during that access to property period.
That's right. I'm going to be talking about the appraisal a little bit more, and the appraisal is just more than setting that, discovering the value of the property.
Sure.
Okay, I'll be talking about it a little bit later. Raz, you want to ask a question, please?
Good morning, Rick. Thank you for putting up this seminar or explanation. Honestly, I'm looking at it very carefully from the beginning. The only change I see is the one we're just discussing right now.
Yeah.
There is no changes, in my opinion. I mean, they're just graphics and charts and this and that. Anyway, I agree with Carmen. I mean, it defeats the whole purpose. I don't know who came up with this idea, those lawyers or what. If I'm offering cash, then I have to give them a source of fund. So the source of fund I'm giving them, it's going to be fake. So it's made up. So there has to be consequences. And 2 weeks before close of escrow, I come up with what if the loan doesn't go through?
If the loan
the seller disagrees for some reason? It says specifically seller cannot disagree and has to go ahead with closing the escrow. Is that what it says?
No. The seller cannot stop closing escrow, okay? If the buyer comes up with the loan and the loan is approved, loan documents are coming in, if the buyer can close escrow on the day and at the price,
Okay, what happens to the source of fund he presented? Isn't it like there has to be consequences. I agree with Carmen. I offer all cash to your listing, and poor Carmen comes up with 40% down. You don't take her offer, you take my offer. So I lied to you. And there is no consequences. And she couldn't get the deal. She lost the commission because of that.
Okay, so if your buyer, here's the difference between the strength of your buyer and the strength of Carmen's buyer. Your buyer has $1 million sitting in the bank and shows a bank statement for it.
Okay.
Okay. Carmen's buyer has $420, $430, or $500,000 in the bank. Now, that makes a difference to some sellers. Okay, because your buyer, if cannot come up with the loan, that buyer has to buy it all cash. Otherwise, they lose their deposit if they have removed their contingencies.
I understand that. But everybody from now on, everybody is going to put all cash offer. Don't you think so? It's going to create a mayhem.
No.
Well, we'll see.
Let's see how it goes. You know, change is always a little bit uncomfortable. Change is always a little bit difficult. You know, if it wasn't for change today, we would be using those books for MLS.
Rick, did we need the change? Who asked for change? It says whose benefit, just like this coming soon issue. Why did they change it? Why are we changing? Who asked for change?
All right, I'm not gonna start answering those questions because I need to finish this on time. Okay, CAR has got committees that are working on this, attorneys that are working on this. At the Standard Form Advisory Committee that I participated, they have 20-some members plus 5-6 attorneys that are sitting there, and we are listening to all the lawsuits and all the claims, and also if it's not a lawsuit or a claim, but suggestions and everything that comes from all different associations. So the forms have been created by that committee, and because of the issues that have come up. And this form, as you start using it, you're going to see that I think it's going to be a better form.
The same committee made a lot of mistakes, you know better than me, and they changed it later. They changed it and they changed it again. Okay.
All right. So let's move on. All right. Closing and possession.
Susan did ask one question just because she doesn't have the mic. What was Ira's question? She wanted clarification on Ira's question that he originally asked.
Ira was asking if they have if the buyer is a corporation and buying the property for flip, and the seller is a homeowner that is occupying the property. Okay, what do we use? We have a form, NODPA. We'll use that form. And I don't know if the NODPA has been updated, or I don't know if they were going to have a new NODPA, but the form to use in that case is for the NODPA. All right, let's move on. Condition of the property, all properties. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but going back to the cash issue, if someone is making an offer and shows proof of funds and it's fraudulent, I mean, that's fraud. So I don't think that's going to be much of an issue.
All right. If it's fraud, then there is going to be, ramification for that buyer and that agent who is submitting fraud.
Right. Right.
Yeah, okay. All right. So let's talk about, where was I? Condition of the property. Property sold as is in its present condition. Okay. If the seller is remaining in possession after close of escrow, again, less than 29 days or less, please use the form SIP, and 30 days or more, RLAS. Appraisal, I was going to tell you that appraisal is more than just value. Appraisals are often a reliable source of verifying square footage of the subject property. However, the ability to cancel based on measurements provided in an appraisal falls under the investigation of the property. Okay, if you're removing the appraisal contingency because of the loan, okay, you may have a right if the property, if you do an appraisal, let's say you're appraising a property that is supposed to be 5,000 square feet and it comes up to 4,500 square feet. That is part of your investigation, okay? This is why you still have the right to access the property to do appraisal, even if you remove the appraisal contingency. And if it becomes, and if it's, let's say 500, 600 square feet shorter than what is advertised, the buyer can cancel. The buyer can say, look, it's 500 square feet shorter than what you advertised. So for any cancellation based upon the appraisal contingency, buyer shall deliver a copy of the written appraisal to the seller upon request. Have to make sure, just in the current RPA and also in this one, if you're canceling based on inspection, based on any report, you have to provide a copy of it to the seller. It's clarifying it here that appraisal is part of it too. So if you're canceling based on appraisal, you have to provide a copy of it to the seller. No appraisal contingency. If no appraisal contingency is checked in paragraph, then buyer may not use loan contingency specified in paragraph 3L1 to cancel this agreement, okay? If buyer is unable to obtain the loan specified solely for this reason, seller may be entitled to buyer's deposit. So a little bit more clarification in the language is over here. Condo plan disclosures, okay, contingent upon buyer review of common interest disclosures. That goes back to our grids that we were talking about at the very front page or the second page, that buyer has the right to, within 17 days or 5 days, that they should review the common interest disclosures. And if the time passes, then when they receive it, they have an additional 5 days. This is a very important paragraph. Removal or waiver of contingencies with offer. If buyer does remove a contingency without first receiving all required information from the seller, buyer is relinquishing any contractual rights that apply to that contingency. So if you remove the physical inspection contingency ahead of time, and then later on you go in there for your informational inspection, and then you say, oh my God, the roof is falling apart, I don't want to buy this, and you do another inspection by a contractor, and you decide not to buy it, you have waived your contingency, okay? So you cannot cancel based on that. So be careful of removing contingencies with your purchase agreement. Features, all existing fixtures and fittings that are attached to the property, okay? It has changed a little bit. Home automation, whatever that we have right now, this is the part that has changed. Home automation, smart home features like smart thermostats, kitchen appliances, lighting systems, things that are wired to a computer or they are operating wirelessly. You're driving home, you can probably, these days you can open your curtains, you can turn on the coffee maker, you can turn on the lights with your iPhone, okay? And going home, when you get home, all the lights are on, okay? So lighting systems, all of that, the control unit, computer, tablet, phone, or other smart devices, those are all items that are included in the sales. Now you're going to go, oh my God, I'm using my iPhone to turn it on. Does that? No. Is my iPhone included? No, it's not. Okay. There's a difference. There are dedicated devices, okay, and there are items that are non-dedicated, okay. Non-dedicated devices, okay. Non-dedicated devices, all smart home and security system control devices are included in the sale, except for any non-dedicated personal computer, tablet, phone used to control such features. So you're sitting at home and you have a tablet, that tablet, okay, controls the curtains, the lights, the jacuzzi, I don't know, the light, the lights outside, all of that, security system. That tablet is included in the sale. But your iPhone that does the same thing from here, from your work and whatever, is not included because your iPhone is non-dedicated. It's not designed specifically for that use. So the one that is designed specifically for that use is included in the purchase, okay? Items excluded from the sale. Audio, video components, such as flat screen TV, just like what we have right now, speakers and all that. But here's the difference. Unless otherwise specified in paragraph 3, brackets attached to the wall, floors or ceilings for any such components, furniture or other will be removed, and holes or other damages shall be repaired but not painted. Our current RPA says you take the speaker off, you take the flat screen off, but the mounts stay, brackets stay, okay? Unless you ask for it. In this purchase agreement, it says those brackets come off, okay? The flat screen comes off, brackets come off, they're not included in there, and it will be patched but not painted unless you ask for those brackets to remain in there, okay? We talked about allocation of cost. We've already gone over it. Statutory and non-other disclosures, that your TDS, NHD are your statutory disclosures, part of your statutory disclosures, and need to be provided. Home fire hardening, I'm going to be talking about it just a little bit later. Just be a little bit patient. And home space, defensible space disclosure and addendum. Also, if a property requires TDS, this form is required. The defensible space disclosure and addendum is required. If a property is built before January 1st of 2010, then the home fire FHDS is required. Now, both of them are combined. So think about it this way. Any property built before January 1st, 2020, you need to provide this form. Any property that you provide TDS, you need to provide FHDS. So almost all properties, you have to provide FHDS. Waiver of statutory lead and other disclosures that are in paragraph 1111, these are TDS, SPQs, NHDs, lead-based report, and all of that. Those waiver of those statutory disclosures are prohibited by law. So people can't come in and say, I don't want to provide the transfer disclosure statement. Sometimes there's a misunderstanding. Some people are saying, oh, I'm selling it under my trust, so I don't have to provide TDS. You have to provide TDS unless the person, the trustee that is selling that property, okay, has never occupied it. If they have occupied it, if they're currently occupying it, if they've been on the property for the last year, 2, whatever, okay, they need to disclose it. It's a liability issue. They need to provide the TDS and all. All right, let's go to the next. Buyer's investigation of the property and matters affecting the property. Okay, parts of, I'm not going to go over what is included, what is not, but I want to just clarify. Investigation is general home inspection. That one paragraph, that one little paragraph that we talked about it, that you say, okay, if it's 17 days or 5 days or whatever, it includes a general home inspection. That's the physical inspection. An inspection for lead-based paint. An inspection specifically for wood-destroying pests and organisms. Okay, the termite report has always been in our purchase agreement, and it is in our current purchase agreement, the termite inspection. But in the past, it was the seller. We were asking the seller to do it. Now it is the buyer's responsibility, okay? And in our current or the past, just recent RPA, and in this new RPA, buyer has the right, and buyer should do the termite inspection. other buyers' investigations are like insurance and a whole bunch of other things. If you read this, you're going to see that there is a whole bunch of investigations that are included in it. Right to sell, just like our current RPA, given notice to buyer to perform. For the seller's right to cancel, I apologize. Seller's right to cancel, have to give the notice to buyer to perform. Buyer right to cancel has to give the seller notice to seller to perform, notice to buyer or seller to perform, and notice to buyer to perform, or notice to seller to perform if it's served incorrectly, delivered or specified time is less than the agreed time, then the notice shall be deemed invalid, void, and seller and buyer shall be required to deliver a new notice to buyer to perform or notice to seller to perform with the specified time frame. Again, your notice to buyer to perform in this purchase agreement or notice to seller to perform is 2 days. You cannot change it to 1 day, 3 days, 5 days. It is in there for 2 days. Okay. Now, you want to give a notice to buyer to perform and notice to seller to perform. You cannot change it to 1 day. You cannot change it to any day. You cannot change it to 1 day. If you want to add longer than 2 days, you can, but you have to make sure that if your notice to buyer to perform, let's say your buyer's contingency expires this Friday, but you give a notice to buyer to perform on Monday, which is 2 days, and it goes Tuesday and Wednesday, that notice to buyer to perform is no good. Your notice to buyer to perform has to be expiring on the day of expiration of their contingency, or it has to be later. Just because the contingency expires on Friday, that doesn't give you the right to give them a notice to buyer to perform on Thursday and say you have 1 day. Can't do that. Okay? It has to be 2 days. It has to be minimum 2 days. That's what your contract calls for. All right. Demand to close escrow the same way. Okay. And final verification of condition. Make sure that you use the form VP. It's still over here. Assignment. At the very beginning, I talked about, 17 days. Buyer has the right, the first 17 days to assign the property. Okay. If the buyer is going to assign it to a buyer's wholly owned trust or entity. So if I am writing an offer and I write on the Rick Boniati, and then within the first 17 days, I want to put it on the Rick Boniati Family Trust, okay, or an LLC that I own, or a corporation that I own, that is wholly owned by me. I am the only one that is the owner of that LLC or that corporation. The seller cannot object within the first 17 days, okay? But after 17 days, the seller has the right to object. Now, if I want to assign it to, within the 17 days or afterwards, if I want to assign it to another person, then prior to any assignment, buyers shall disclose to the seller the name of the assignee and the amount and any monetary consideration between buyer and assignee. So Vivian is the seller. I am the buyer. Eddie Minasian is the assignee. Okay. So Vivian, I bought a property from Vivian. I just got the RPA accepted. I go into contract and I want to assign this property to Eddie Minasian, or Eddie Minasian and I have an LLC together and we want to put it over there. I have to go get Vivian's approval for that. And also and I also have to get loan approval and all that under our new LLC and provide it to the to the seller. Okay. I also have to disclose how much money I am getting for assigning my property to or assigning the property to Eddie Minasia. I have to disclose it to Vivian. Okay. Any questions on the assignee? AOA agreement? All right.
With one question, Rick.
Yes.
I thought a trust cannot buy a property. I thought it had to be done after close. Am I wrong?
Yes, that you can buy it anytime, no problem. Laws have changed. Yeah, lenders have updated their requirement. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's move on. All right, counting days. This is something that has been changed and has been clarified a lot more. Okay, so the first day after an event is your first full day. So you want to you accept the offer today. Today does not count. Okay, today does not count. Today is the acceptance date, but today does not count. You give a notice to buyer to perform. Today does not count. You give a notice demand to close escrow. Today does not count. Okay, the first day after an event is the full calendar day following the event and ending at 11:59. So tomorrow is the first day. Okay, Friday will be the second day. Okay. All calendar days are counted. Excuse me. All calendar days are counted in determining the date upon the performance must be completed, ending at 11:59 p.m. on the last day of performance. This is called scheduled performance day. Just hang in there. We're going places. Okay. So you give a notice to buyer to perform today, Wednesday. Tomorrow is Thursday. Friday is your scheduled performance day. You have an escrow. You have a purchase agreement. You have a purchase agreement, and they have to remove the contingency tomorrow. That's their scheduled performance day. Okay. If the scheduled performance day or any act required by this agreement, including close of escrow, lands on Saturday, Sunday, or a legal holiday, the performing party shall be allowed to perform on the next day that is not a Saturday, Sunday, or legal holiday. That is called allowable performance day. So these are the two words, or these are the two new phrases that we need to get used to. Okay. So if you have a contract that their contingency are running out this Saturday, they have until Monday night to remove the contingencies, as long as Monday is not a holiday. You give a notice to buyer to perform tomorrow, which is Thursday. Your first day is Friday. Your second day is Saturday. That's your scheduled performance day. But your scheduled performance day cannot be on a Saturday. So what it does is it goes to Sunday. Sunday is closed, so it goes to Monday. So be aware of that. I know there's going to be a whole bunch of questions on this. Vahe and then Ira.
Rick, thank you for sharing all this information. Quick thing, I remember at the past when I spoke with the CAR legal, when they do a counter, when they spell day with the capital D and then lower D, attorney was saying it that it's a difference. So if it's low, I don't remember it, which one was it. So if it's a lower D, is that means that calendar day? And then if it's a capital D, is that means work days? Do you know anything about it?
Yeah, that's in the days and everything else. That's in the clear days. D, days or days, means calendar days or days, however, delivery or deposit of escrow based on business days.
But the attorney was asking me that if the day spells as capital D or lower D.
I don't understand.
Okay.
Days are calendar days, and these days, that means if the last day falls on business day, then it's a business day. We don't have, 5 business days. So starting from today, tomorrow is the first business day. The next is business day. We don't have business day. What it means is if it falls on a holiday, then it's going to go to a business day.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ira.
Rick, can you define what a legal holiday is, or who's the authority for defining legal holidays? Because sometimes they're federal, sometimes we have state holidays that, and some offices are closed. So it might be nice if it's defined what a legal holiday is and who's the authority for defining it.
I would, you know what, you have a great point, Ira. You have a great point. It has come up at the Standard Forum Committee, and I believe we have some days that escrow company doesn't work, but like the county recorder is closed this next Friday. Okay, but it's not a legal holiday. I think title companies, I don't know if there's any title officer, I don't know if they are working. Some escrow companies may be open, but they're just processing paperwork. They cannot close escrow. So I know what you're saying, what is a real legal holiday, but for right now, think about it this way. All federal holidays, all the holidays that the banks are closed, escrows are closed, and the county recorder is closed. If the county recorder is closed, can you close an escrow?
No.
So think about it now.
Hey, Rick.
Unless it's more clarified a little bit later. Yes, go ahead. Who's there?
Rick, it's Margie. So, for example, just to tag on to that, next Friday, the 24th, Christmas Eve, which correct is not a holiday, but it's the holiday observed. So Christmas, since it falls on a Saturday, it's observed on a Friday. So I guess one could consider that a legal holiday, but just for everyone's info, like Glen Oaks Escrow is not open that day at all.
Yeah. Escrows are closed, but it's not a legal holiday. But escrows are not closed. The county recorder is not. I mean, escrows are closed. County recorder is closed. Right. We're not going to be able to.
The purpose of this contract, when it says it can't fall on Saturday, Sunday, or a holiday, when a federally recognized holiday falls on a weekend, it usually, the day is observed, the holiday is observed, the business day either before, meaning a Friday, or after, meaning a Monday. So I guess that would count, since you look at a calendar, it says, for example, Christmas Day is observed on the 24th. I think any reasonable person would know, you're not going to be able to do anything if escrow and title and county recorder is closed. Just look ahead on your calendar and just advise your client this isn't going to happen.
Yeah, that has come. And anyway, you're absolutely right, and that was the discussion at the Standard Forum, I think Forum on Forums as well. But as time goes by, it's going to be clarified more and more, and then maybe addendums were going to come up. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. All right, so let's move on. Okay. Liquidated damages, mediation, arbitration. You guys all know about it. Now, if you complete this form properly, the RCSD B for buyer is not going to be required. So if you have an entity buyer, if you have an LLC, if you have a corporation, if you have somebody an entity buyer, you just mark over here that you have an entity buyer, the name of the legally authorized signer, the name of that person goes over here, whoever that is going to sign, signature, that person is going to sign over here, print name of the buyer, the LLC, corporation, company, whatever it is, it's going to go over here. And the person that is signing it that person's name is going to be here, and the title is going to be here. If you complete this form properly, RCSD-B, or in this case, RCSD-S for the seller, will not be required, okay? By the way, the RCSD forms will be going away within a year or so, but it's going to be there until everybody gets used to using this.
But you still have to use the representative capacity for the seller, right? when the seller is, so
You
like,
can,
oh,
if, you see, if
go ahead.
Sorry, Margie.
No worries.
If it's an entity seller, you just mark this entity seller. You see this one, B, okay? And then you come down here and just write the seller signs over here. Put the entity's name over here. Print the name of the authorized signer, okay, and their position.
Oh, okay. So, for example, so now this RPA is now in effect. When I took a listing, I did, you know, the RCSD for seller, right?
Yes.
But I'm not going to have to have the buyer or buyer's agent sign off on that now, because now we have a new RPA that has this. I just check it here, right?
Yeah. You know, it depends on the other agent. If the other agent really doesn't know it, and you just provide it until everybody gets used to it. That's why they're gonna leave the RCSD S and RCSD B and RCSD, the other two RCSDs also available for the next year or so.
Okay.
All right. So another important feature for this purchase agreement, okay? Your email address goes over here. Your text number goes over here. Now, in the past, we were used to, okay, you know, the listing agent, if the offer is accepted, the listing agent communicates or sends the offer back, then the buyer's agent or the buyer had to initial acceptance and then send it back, okay? And that has gone away. Now, here's what it is. You put a good email address here, because once I am, you know, like, let's say Margie Simpkins is the listing agent. Margie gets your offer signed. The minute Margie puts it, emails you that acceptance, it deems accepted.
Yeah, it's done.
It's done. Okay, so you want to make sure that this email address is a good email address. You can put an alternate email address. I don't know why anybody would use an alternate email address, because once you do an alternate email address, the listing agent that has got your acceptance is going to send it to your alternate email address. And if the alternate email address is your TC's email address, and your TC doesn't work over the weekend, okay, guess what? The acceptance has gone to somebody that doesn't know. All right. So anyway, any questions? All right, let's go over some of the forms. The assignment of agreement addendum. We already talked about this, okay? That within the 17 days, if I'm going to assign it to my own wholly owned company or whatever, the seller is going to cooperate with me. But if I'm going to assign it after 17 days to my own company, or within that 17 days, or after 17 days to anything other than my own wholly owned company, then I need to get the seller's approval, pre-qualification and pre-approvals of assignee. Remember, we said, you know, Margie is the seller, I am the buyer, Eddie Minasian is the assignee, okay? Assignee has been, we have to make sure that the assignee has been pre-qualified and pre-approved by the buyer's lender, by my lender. And that agreement is attached and is going to go to the seller for the seller to see it, okay? Now, if, you know, I don't know if the seller is going to have any issue if the assignee, who is Eddie Minasian, has been approved by another lender. But the seller has the right to say, you know what? Your lender approved you. How come your assignee is being approved with someone else? But I don't think that's going to be a good enough reason for the seller to say, no, I don't want to approve the assignment. Okay, so delivery and assignee, Eddie Minasian, okay, shall deliver initial copies of prior documents to the seller within 3 days after delivery to assignee a signed copy of this agreement. Okay, any document that I have as buyer, I have to give it to assignee, which is Eddie Minasian, and Eddie has to initial the front page of each document, okay, and give it back to the seller.
Rick, by the way, I'm ready to close the escrow anytime you're ready to finish this.
Yeah, and so and if there are documents that the seller didn't give me, the buyer, and I brought Eddie into the picture, the seller now can give the document directly to him. Okay, so read this assignment of agreement. It is a good one to read. Let's go to the next one. Cancellation of contract, release of deposit. That has been changed. Okay, the top part is the same. The bottom part, we used to have A, B, C, D. Okay, now it's a little bit different. The C says full release of seller, buyer and seller, they both agree that, look, we're going to release each other. We're going to cancel the escrow with this escrow company. Okay, number one, seller authorizes release of buyer's deposit to buyer. That this is choice A in our current cancellation. Okay, seller authorizes release of buyer's deposit to buyer minus all the costs, like, you know, if there's escrow fees, if there's title fees, whatever. Two is buyer authorizes release of buyer's deposit to seller. It is choice B in our current cancellation. Okay, minus the cost and expenses and everything. And three, this is a new chart. This is a new option. Buyer authorizes release of certain amount from the buyer's deposit to the seller and the balance to the buyer, each party to pay their own fees and costs that has been incurred. Or last one, they're saying, look, we're going to release and we have the reservation rights. Okay, we're going to cancel, but we have reservation rights, and we are going to cancel the escrow, but the money is going to stay with the escrow company or a third party. Okay, until a subsequent mutual instruction, judicial decision, or arbitration. Carmen, you have a question.
Could the seller ask for credit back from the buyer for the HOA document preparation fee?
Yes, yes. This is what this, you know, it came up so many times that CAR created this paragraph here. So let's say we're going to cancel escrow, okay? And buyer says, I want to cancel escrow, they're not qualified, or whatever happened, okay? They want to cancel the escrow. And the seller says, look, I'm going to cancel the escrow, but I had HOA fees, I have escrow fees, I have other fees, I have done some repairs, I've done this. The deposit is $24,000. Buyer and seller agreed that $10,000 will be released to the seller. The other $14,000 is going to go to the buyer. In the past, we just worked it out and we did an amendment or an addendum, and then we sent it to the escrow company. The escrow company prepared everything and did that. Nowadays, okay, it's in here. We're just going to put it here, $10,000, okay, and deduct cost and fees, and we're done. But if it is just cost and fees, okay, you can talk to the escrow company and you can use choice number one. Seller authorizes release of buyer's deposit to the buyer, less buyer's fees and costs already incurred, agreed in contract. This doesn't talk about seller's cost and fees. This talks about buyer's cost and fees. So for that, you would probably use number three.
Rick?
Yes.
Margie again.
Hi.
Wouldn't it be prudent to get this agreed upon during the negotiation of the contract? Because this number C1 where you've got it highlighted, it says less buyer's fees and costs already incurred and, not or, but and agreed in the contract to be paid through.
Yeah, it is in the contract. It is in the new contract. I just wanted to bring it to your attention here.
Oh, okay. It is the new concept. Let me see. Oh, okay, so just refer back to the RPA under cancellation, and it'll be there that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just refer back to that, and then you'll see that it's going to be there.
Okay.
All right, let me move on, okay? Because I want to finish this ASAP. All right, let's move on to the next form. Consumer privacy advisory, whatever, everything has changed. All the wording has changed because of the new laws and everything else. But the form is still called CCPA. That's the only thing that stayed the same, CCPA. All right. Contingency removal, you have loan, appraisal, entire buyer's investigation, or you have only the part of the inspection concerning the physical attribute of the property, or all buyer's investigation other than physical attributes of the, or number 4, entire buyer's investigation contingency except certain things that you want to put in. Okay, so read this as you're removing contingencies. Just remove the contingencies that you have completed. That's the investigations that you have completed. Okay, and it's got, just like before, it's got the preliminary title report, common interest development, review of lease lien items, sale of buyer's property, and all that in there. Okay, the seller's contingencies are still the same. The next form I have only page 6 of 8 of residential purchase agreement, residential lease or month-to-month rental agreement. You're going to see a change. It says mold and dampness. As of now, every time that you're doing this, you're doing a lease or month-to-month rental agreement, there's going to be a little booklet that is going to be attached to it, and it is mold and dampness booklet that is going to be attached to it. Another thing that has changed in that form is death on the premises. If any death has happened in the last 3 years on the premises, you need to notify the tenant. Any other material fact that the landlord, housing provider, or the agent knows should go here. Lease, rental, mold, and ventilation addendum. We currently have it. It is going to be modified just a little bit, and it's going to have 2 items added to it. If the premises was previously treated for elevated level of mold, then you should check this box. Mold and dampness, the booklet, it just talks about that booklet. Notice to buyer to perform, it has been modified, it has been changed, but these are items that you can give notice to buyer to perform on. You have contingency agreement that you can give notices on, and then you have the contractual agreement, contractual actions that you can give notice to buyer to perform, like initial deposit. Okay, there's a difference between the two, but I think we already know it, and it's a little bit more items compared to our current notice to buyer to perform. But okay, so notice to seller to perform is the same. It's just been modified. It has the fire hardening and defensible space booklet in there. If the seller doesn't provide it, the buyer can give the seller notice to perform. Any booklets, condominium plan development. So just read this. These are items that you can give notice to buyer or seller to perform. Receipt for reports. It has been updated. Now you have an option of delivery via link. If you're not going to use this, make sure that you notify the other party that you do not want your reports delivered through a link and you want it emailed to you, or whichever way that you want. Okay. Residential lease after sale has been changed a whole bunch. Okay, and you need to be very, very careful. This form used to be 5 pages, now it is 7 pages. Okay, just be careful. Read this through. It's it just basically talks about, look, funds have to be wired, this is for occupancy 30 days or longer. It talks about where the seller can park, talks about water submeter, gas submeters, talks about, moving in, moving out form, talks about smoking. If the seller that is living on the property right now, all of a sudden after close of escrow decides to smoke cigars inside, So, this looks a lot like a lease form, and it is a lease form, because your buyer is going to become the landlord or the housing provider. Your seller is becoming a tenant. Okay, so be careful on this form. Let's go to the next form. Request for repair. This form has been changed, even though it looks a lot the same. You fill the form out and send it to the other side. What kind of a repair you want to do? I want you to do all of this. I want you to do the section 1. This section 1 has been here for you for forever. Okay, and so your buyer does the termite inspection, and they ask for either a section 1 repair or a section 2 repair. FHA repairs are here now. It has been added to this. Okay, but look at this. There's something new that is important that I think you guys should pay attention to. Now your request for repair has an expiration date. In the past, the request for repair didn't have an expiration date. Now it has an expiration date. It says, buyer proposes this request for repair, which shall be deemed revoked unless by 5 p.m. on the 3rd day after this is signed by the buyer, or on whatever date that you want to put in there is signed by seller, and a copy of the request for repair is delivered to the buyer. When you send a request for repair out to the seller really doesn't have to respond. So you're sending a request for repair out to the seller and saying, Mr. Seller, I want you to give me $20,000 discount. I want you to do the new roof and new plumbing. 3 days passes by, seller doesn't respond. This is canceled. Okay? This is canceled. So anyway, read this part, and so you will understand that there is, you can either wait until it cancels or you can withdraw it. Seller's response and buyer's reply, okay, it's the same, goes all the way down, and it has the same thing, unless 5 p.m. on the 3rd day, signed by seller, it is approved, otherwise it is withdrawn. Okay? Goes back to seller counteroffer. The counteroffers have changed. Okay, now you have all of this in here, and part of this is put in here because we want to make sure that people will stop writing, seller to remain in possession for 29 days, 30 days, because that's in our brain. Okay, I want to occupy I'll leave a month later, and you put 30 days. There's a big difference between 29 days and 30 days. 29 days, you use the SIP. It's a license for them to remain in there. 30 days or more, it is a tenancy issue. Okay? So get used to using the form. Okay, seller license to remain, SIP, just mark this, and SIP will be automatically attached. Okay. If you're going to use the TOPA, tenant occupied property addendum, we can mark over here. If it is 30 days or more occupancy, use the residential lease after sale. Seller multiple counteroffer, again, is the same. And both counters talk about liquidated damages. But look, if one party initials liquidated damages, the other party didn't or doesn't want it, make sure you clarify. Seller does not want liquidated damages. Don't just go by not initially. I know that none of you do that, but anyway, just to make sure. So use the SIP or RLAS if you need to. Okay. The next form is the buyer's counteroffer. That, you know, it's got the terms and conditions of these documents are incorporated into buyer's counteroffer unless otherwise agreed upon. So everything is almost the same. Again, talks about the liquidated damages and arbitration clause. The last form that we're going to review, it is the seller property questionnaire. And a couple of questions in here has changed, and you need to pay serious attention to it. Okay. Number one, there is no time limitation unless otherwise specified. This is seller is aware about each of the statements, or you sell each of the statements below. So if they're aware of something, they should say mark yes or no. Okay. It's not like, oh, it was 6 months ago or a year ago. If you're aware of it, please say yes and explain. The part that I want to go to, any past or present disputes with the neighbors. We didn't have this before. Now we have it. So if it's yes, just mark yes and do some kind of an explanation. Okay. Any difference between the name of the city and in the postal mailing address and the city reached the jurisdiction over the property. Cabrini Villas are the one that comes into mind. Cabrini Villas have got a Burbank. Cabrini Villas have Burbank address, mailing address, but all of their services are City of LA. La Crescenta, parts of it are City of Glendale, parts of it are County of LA. So this is for that part, okay? The last one that I really want you to pay attention, and this came up because this was one of my suggestions in this form. Also, any use of the property or any alterations, modifications, improvements, remodeling, or material changes to the property due to cannabis cultivation and growth. This is important because people have homes and they grow, cannabis in one of the bedrooms or in the garage, and they have, very strong lights and water, moisture, mold, wire damage and all that. And, when they want to sell it, they just clean everything up, paint it, and they're going to close the escrow. And then 2 years later, we find out that there's huge mold inside the wall that is growing. So this is going to be something that, every seller needs to answer the question. With this, we are done. We went half an hour over.
Rick?
Yes.
Margie again. Sorry. The trust advisory, they didn't update the trust advisory, because now that we have the fire hardening and defensible space addendum or disclosure, a trust is exempt from that.
If the trust, if the FHDS says if only the property is, if TDS is not required, then FHDS is not required.
Okay, so okay, all right. So
right?
Except, well,
but here's what I would do, Margie, because
I would just tell the other agent they can look it up on CAR's website. I mean, there's like a cheat sheet.
Yeah,
of what is required in a trust and what's not. I was just thinking, since there were a couple new disclosures that we have had over the past couple of years, yet the trust advisory hasn't been updated. So maybe next year they'll update it.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that, and I will take it to the committee, January.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Of course, anytime. Any questions, please? In the FHDS, the first part is for properties that are built prior to 2010. The seller has to just read that, and if the seller is aware of any anything, any defects or anything that those 6 questions, if they're aware of it, they should mark it. But the seller shouldn't really go out there and investigate and find out whether their gutters meet the requirement or they don't meet the requirement. The seller doesn't have to do it. All the seller has to do is just say, yes, I'm aware of, that my house is deficient in having, ventilation in the roof or whatever, okay? Or the roof is made if the roof is with untreated wood. But if the seller says, I have no idea what this is talking about, okay, they don't have to mark any one of them. My suggestion to the form committee has been, let's say yes, no, so people are going to say yes or no. Are you seller aware of yes or no? So that might come a little bit later. Then after that is the defensible area. And then there is a whole bunch of questions to be answered, okay? And it says, if there is such an ordinance in your area about defensible space. City of Glendale does have an ordinance that if you're in high fire or very high fire area, you have to keep vegetation clear 100 feet, 30 feet, 100 feet, depending on the area, but depending on the space from your home. However, it is not a point of sale requirement. And since it is not point of sale requirement, do not mark any of the boxes. Those boxes after that, do not mark any of those boxes. So the buyer has a year to talk to the fire department and say, we want to come and check my properties to see if everything is okay. But let me tell you something. Glendale, Burbank, Pasadena, all these areas that we are selling, the city comes out and city inspects it every year. And if there is any issues, they issue a notice. So you don't have to check any of those boxes. All right. Any questions? Thank you very much for your patience today. I am grateful. Sorry it went a little bit longer. We had really, really good questions. And you guys are amazing. We're done with this, so we can stop recording. If you or any one of you would like to get a link, just email Robert and you can listen to this all over again. If you like to have this form redone, or if you want me to come back and redo this, please let me know and I will be happy to come back and do it. I think the association is gonna schedule 1 or 2 more, and I'm gonna go over the same thing a couple of times. We want to make sure that all of our members are updated. All of our members know about all these forms and everything by beginning of the year. So there's not going to be any questions, any doubts about this whole thing. Once you use it a couple of times, you're going to see this form is really easy to use. The first 3 pages is everything. The rest of it, you need to read. Just take time, read it, and update yourself. Okay, with that, thank you. Yes.
Again, one more. Since you're going to maybe discuss the trust advisory in January. So this has always been an issue for me, that on the contract, the verification of property condition, basically the buyer's walkthrough. Yes. I think there should be something in the RPA that stipulates that the property does not have to be vacated. I have had, over the course of 22 years, probably 5, which this is way too many, where the buyer, my client buyer, is totally just really miffed that when they do their walkthrough, the seller hasn't vacated. And so they can't see, well, how do I know they're not going to damage the property? How do I know, you know, what's behind that big mirror on the wall? And it's, I'll tell you, it's just consistently been an issue for me, but we all know I have challenging.
You know, once I remember, I think it came up once, and the answer was do your walkthrough, you know, before close of escrow when it's vacated. But my issue, and I'm pretty sure you're going to say the same thing. What if you have buyers that are the sellers that are?
Yeah, sellers aren't moving out until escrow closes, or the possession is closed plus 4 days. That's
right.
When they're out.
And that has been, you know, discussed a little bit about in this form, in this new RPA, or one of the amendments with the form MIMO, moving in, moving out. So at the time that you are doing your walkthrough form, use the move, you know, moving in, basically you doing a walkthrough and just check everything out. When the tenant, especially if they're staying 30 days or longer, then you do it at that time, and that will be moving out. And then if you have a security deposit,
no, I'm talking about buyer and seller. I'm not talking about.
I know.
I don't, but you, if you, okay, so you do your final walkthrough with your buyer, and you're taking a move out inspection. What the walkthrough is not a contingency. There's no recourse for the buyer to seek reimbursement for damage.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you let's say you the purchase agreement says the property has to be delivered to the buyer in the same condition that you saw it at the time that you wrote the offer.
Right.
Okay, at the time that you wrote the offer. So, if let's say
I understand that point. I was just thinking that possibly in the forms advisory, when you guys are talking about forms, that somebody could take a second look at this and maybe just slip in the sentence, the seller does not have to be vacated.
I would love to take it back. If everyone, any comments that you have, any suggestions that you have, Margie, anything else that you think about, okay, shoot me an email.
I will.
I will be happy to take it to the standard form advisory committee, and you know, they let me in. I think this year I'm going to be regional chair, so I'm not going to be serving at the committee, but at 8 o'clock before their meeting, they allow me to go in and express my feeling and also my suggestions.
Okay.
So I will take any and all suggestions that you guys have. I will take it in. I can even take it to the forum on forums and discuss it over there. And you know, the SPQ, the last paragraph that talks about, you know, cannabis growth, it is because of our company, because we came across a home that we were selling, and we found out that the seller had grown cannabis in there, and we needed to disclose to the buyer. And once I took it to Gov Hutchinson, and then after that to the standard form, it was a no-brainer. The previous purchase agreement, Keith Sorum had made a suggestion, and it changed because of Keith's suggestion. So anything that you guys think about, let me know. I will be happy to communicate the suggestions and your